Before the basement became a nightmare, these students were ordinary, dreaming, laughing, unaware of what awaited them. The ad in the Palo Alto Times seemed innocent, but it was the start of a psychological descent none could foresee. In 1971, a quiet basement at Stanford University transformed into a nightmare that would haunt psychology forever. 24 normal college students were about to find out how quickly a person can lose their soul. The experiment was supposed to last 2 weeks. It didn't even make it to 7 days. But what most people don't realize is that it wasn't stopped just because of ethics. It was stopped because it was no longer controllable. Years later, Stanford would officially distance itself from this experiment. It was no longer science. It was a descent into madness. It started with a simple ads in the Palo Alto Times, offering $15 a day to take part in a study of prison life. Over 70 people applied, but only the most mentally stable were chosen to be divided into 2 groups, guards and prisoners. To make it feel real, Philip Zimbardo arranged for the Palo Alto police to actually arrest the prisoners at their homes. They were blindfolded, searched, and stripped of their identities. Given smocks with ID numbers and no underwear, the prisoners were no longer names. They were digits.
Once roles were assigned, the first subtle power dynamics began. A glance, a gesture, a whispered command. Seeds of cruelty. But the guards? They were given khaki uniforms, whistles, and silver reflective sunglasses to hide their eyes. Zimbardo told them, "You can create a sense of fear, a sense of helplessness." And they did. Within hours, the line between acting and reality began to dissolve. The guards started using psychological tactics, waking prisoners up at 2 a.m. for counts, and forced exercise. When the prisoners rebelled on day 2, the guards fought back with fire extinguishers and solitary confinement. The basement was no longer a lab. It was a battlefield of the mind. It wasn't just orders, it was a mirror effect. Guards saw themselves through each other, reflecting escalating dominance. Why did good people turn so dark so fast? This is the core of the Lucifer effect. It wasn't about bad apples, it was about a bad barrel. Deindividuation allowed the guards to lose their personal morality and adopt the cruelty of the group. They weren't John or Dave anymore. They were the role. The prisoners suffered from learned helplessness. They stopped trying to escape because they believed they were truly trapped. Even Zimbardo himself got lost, becoming the superintendent rather than the lead researcher. It took an outsider, Christina Masloch, to look at the basement and realize, this isn't science, this is torture.
The experiment ended on day 6, but for the participants, the shadows stayed much longer. We like to think we are different, that we would never be the guard with the stick. But Stanford taught us that under the right pressure, the hero and the villain occupy the same heart. The most terrifying part isn't what happened in that basement. It's how easily it could happen again. So, if you were put in that basement, which one would you become?